Welcome to day 2 of PRI In Person 2024. I'm Emily West, your digital host, and I'm delighted to welcome you back to our live studio that's here in the heart of the action in PRI's exhibition hall in the Metro Toronto Convention Centre in Toronto, Canada. Once again, we are bringing you Q&A sessions, exclusive fireside chats, as well as all the live plenary and breakout A sessions. The full programme is available for you to watch on demand 24 to 48 hours after it finishes. You can check the agenda anytime by choosing Agenda on the navigation bar and make sure you select PRI In Person-Digital. Once again, we'll be using Slido to put your questions to our fantastic guests here in the studio. You can find Slido on the right-hand side of your screen and make sure to select Live Studio when you submit your questions. We'll also be using Slido shortly for our first poll of the day. If you can't see Slido on your screen, just make sure to exit full screen and then you'll see it. And so I'm delighted to welcome to the studio our first guest for day 2. Joining me here, I have Lian Hillier, PRI's Chief People Officer, Ophir Bruck, Head of Investment Management Sustainability Solutions for North America, S&P Global, and Tamsin Ballard, PRI's Chief Investor Initiatives and Collaborations Officer. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me here in the live studio. We're delighted to have you here speaking to our virtual audience. We had a fantastic day yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so much content. It was squeezed so much in one day. What I'd love to hear from you first is what was maybe your highlight from the day or what left the biggest impression? Can we start with you, Tamsin?
Yeah.
Sorry, Lian.
Threw us off there.
Yeah. So I think for me, the bit that stood out was optimism. I think David used the word hope in his plenary. I think sometimes in our sector, we spend a lot of time thinking about the challenges, the risks, the problems and the issues that we're facing. So it was quite refreshing to think there has been progress and there are things for us to be hopeful for. So that definitely stood out for me over the course. And we heard it through not just David, we had a bit of it with Connor as well, with his the chair, with his opening speech. And then right through to the last panel at the end of the day, they started with what's your reason to be hopeful at the moment? And I was like, that was kind of quite different to hear.
It was great. And there's such a positive atmosphere here at PRI as
So
well. You can really
positive.
feel it.
Yeah, you can.
Fantastic. Ophir, same question to you.
Yeah, it's just fantastic to be here. You can really feel the energy in the conference hall. So really echoing Lian's comments, I think there's just a real motivation to take action. There was a reference, a lot of metaphors to a sprint versus a marathon, and we're sort of, we've got the distance of a marathon, but we need to run the speed of a sprint. For me, the highlight yesterday was really the plenary on I'm trying to think of the title, The Just Transition in Emerging Markets and Carbon-Intensive Economies. And some comments that stuck out to me from that plenary were from Catherine McKenna on the importance of positive lobbying and the role of particularly the financial sector in really asking government for what they need. And this is all in the context, we heard it, I'd say, throughout the plenaries yesterday, that the Canadian government is lagging currently when it comes to sustainable finance policy. And there's a real sort of call for a whole of government approach that implements the recommendations of the Sustainable Finance Action Council. So there's just a lot of talk about the importance of investors engaging policymakers on what they need. That was echoed by Michael Cohen from CalPERS, who's also the steering committee chair for Climate Action 100 Plus. So I'd say policy engagement was a theme that stuck out, and we at S&P held a roundtable on Monday where we provided some insights on the state of play amongst Canadian companies when it comes to engaging policymakers on climate and the Paris Agreement. So those were some highlights from yesterday.
And I think that reflects how much was going on yesterday, that those are just the highlights.
There's more.
There's
There's more.
so
Yes,
much more.
there's always more.
Tamsin, same question to you.
So I would very much agree with Ophir on this. I think for me, it was the investor voice and influence. So the role that investors can play in driving the transition to net zero, driving responsible investment. So, as saying the Catherine McKenna's kind of call out to investors to engage positively with policymakers, but very much then re-emphasise. We heard it from Michael Cohen, from CalPERS, from Kirsty Jenkins, from CalSTRS, from Barbara Svan, from UPP, all saying the same thing. The governments are hearing, corporations are hearing from the other side in terms of saying, don't do this, do not do this. I think it was Senator Galvez was saying that at COP last year, the UNFCCC Conference of Parties last year in Dubai, the fossil fuel lobby group was a larger delegation than many other countries. So, the voice is very, very loud. So that needs to be addressed by bringing investors' voice and influence. That's engaging with investees, it's engaging with policymakers, it's engaging with other stakeholders in terms of what investors are expecting in order to be able to ensure that the capital is going in the places that's required. To be able to manage the risks and harness the opportunities that are out there for investors.
Well, speaking of investors, you're going to be taking part in a really interesting discussion on keeping 1.5 alive. And we've got a poll for you, our audience, on this very question right now, which you can find on Slido on the right-hand side of your screen. So our question is, where should investors be putting their focus to keep 1.5 alive? And we're going to come back to your answers very shortly. Looking ahead today, we have another jam-packed schedule, obviously. Lian, what are you most looking forward to today?
That's so hard. There's so much going on today. We've got breakouts everywhere. But I think you've already mentioned it. Tamsin's panel, for me, that race to 1.5 is just going to be such a lively debate. She's got such a good group of people that are going to be joining her. So I hope it's going to be something special and exciting.
No pressure.
Well, and thank you so much for flagging it, because we're going to be having some of Tamsin's guests join us back here in the studio afterwards to answer your questions as well. So we're going to keep that conversation going all day. Thank you so much, Lian. Ophir.
Yeah, I've got to give a shout out to Tamsin's panel and looking forward to that. And I'd say I'm particularly excited about the sessions that focus on the sort of the integration of ESG issues into financial analysis and how to grow value in private markets through ESG integration. There are a couple of, I think it's the F stream breakouts that are going to be recorded and available on demand. But I think I'm excited about them because what I'm seeing is that we've been talking about PRI for 15 plus years at this point, and I'm continually, I would say, surprised at how little we actually see ESG data being incorporated into company valuation, into financial ratios, into discounted cash flow, and to me this is really where it needs to go and where we need to put our focus. We want to see more sell-side analysts incorporating ESG factors into how they're valuing companies. So to me, I was on the local action forum in planning for PRI in person, helping shape the agenda. And that was one thing I was really pushing for. I wanted to see more of those ESG integration in financial analysis panels. So I'm excited that a couple of those are on the agenda, both for public and private markets.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tamsin, same question to you.
So obviously looking forward to the panel that I'll be moderating later in the afternoon. And I think that goes back to what we were just discussing. Yesterday, lots of the plenaries were picking up the importance of stewardship. So an opportunity to really get into depth on that. The other event will be the breakout session actually immediately after this, looking at net zero implementation. So going from commitments to implementation, where there's going to be a mix of asset owners, investment managers, service providers, talking about how they've moved from that commitment stage, so the recognition of the climate risks and the kind of pressing challenges that presents, then thinking through, well, what do we do about it? And I think, coming back to the point around optimism, showing that this can be done. And maybe just to highlight, one of the other things that came out yesterday, both David Atkin and Eric Usher noted the work of the Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance, which is a group of 88 asset owners, around 9.5 trillion US dollars asset under management. But their progress report that's going to be coming out imminently shows that from delivering on the commitments that they've set, they've achieved an average reduction on year of 6% of finance greenhouse gas emissions. And so it can be done. So I'm really looking forward to hearing across the investment chain of different partners saying, right, this is what we're doing. This is how we can move forward. And the opportunity for others in the audience to kind of listen, to share that peer learning coming alive.
And there were lots of kind of facts and figures yesterday about the progress, the great progress that is being made, which comes back to your earlier point about how positive day one was as well. Let's have a look at the poll results. So what does our audience say? A big majority say that investors should be putting their focus on prioritising corporate engagement over prioritising engagement with policymakers. Tamsin, any final thoughts on that?
Look, to be honest, I think we need both. And I think that also reflects that policy engagement is a new area, I would say, for many investors. But it's growing in recognition of importance. And I think that aligns up with growing recognition of the importance of having that enabling environment in place. Investors are acting. But actually, as Senator Galvez was saying yesterday, when she looked around the room and said, look, you're all doing things, which is fantastic, but you need to have the enabling environment in place to create that level playing field and to address the laggards on this. So how do you get that enabling environment in place? Well, one of the things that we need to see a lot more of is that policy engagement coming from investors and using their voice. So I would hope if we were asking that poll again in a year's time, the numbers would be more balanced.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to Tamsin, Ophir, Lian. Really appreciate you joining me in the studio. And we're going to be going very shortly to a live plenary session on this channel. And then we will be back in the studio with PRI board members to hear all about their fantastic work on the PRI board and their vision for PRI. We'll see you back here soon.